Good morning and a very warm welcome. I'm Geeta Pensay and I'm going to be your host throughout this event today. I'd like to say a very warm welcome to those of you who are returning to us, but also to some new faces that are joining us for the very first time. Now, public sector cyber security is being delivered to you by the Public Sector Executive, and this day will be packed full of opportunities to network and also acquire current sector knowledge, whether this knowledge is gained from our incredible speakers or from our event partners in the digital marketplace. Now, I would like to say a thank you to the industry leaders and experts who will be joining us, who will be sharing their invaluable insights. The content standard on our PSE 365 platform means that all the content is CPD certified. So for every hour of content that you watch live, you will earn one CPD point. And your certificates will be with you within 24 hours of this conference ending today. Alongside the keynotes and panel discussions on the agenda for you to enjoy, we have some great networking opportunities through our speed networking function. It helps to extend the knowledge and connections shared today, which can be accessed at any time, ultimately growing our PSE 365 community. And on that note, a few words about our PSE platform. If you're joining us for the very first time or returning, to remember that you and your teams can access a wealth of resources as part of our on-demand content alongside the digital marketplace. And we do really value your views and feedback, so we would love to hear from you about your thoughts, your experiences of today. Please do share them with us on Twitter and LinkedIn. There is a hashtag, there always is. Ours is PSE-365. That's hashtag PSE-365, and we'll look out for those throughout today or in the days to come if you're being reflective and want to share your experiences. Now, let's get started with today, and the focus is, of course, cyber security. Now, public sector organisations are consistently targets of cyber attacks, some more damaging than others, but nonetheless, the attacks impact the delivery of public services across the board. Now, instances such as the 2020 ransomware attack of Redcar and Cleveland, which cost £10 million to release, have still not recovered. And more recently, data breaches have been widespread, some through human error and some maliciously. Now, the National Cybersecurity Centre, NCSC, acts as a bridge between industry and government, providing a unified source of advice, guidance, and support on cybersecurity. The Cybersecurity Breaches Survey is a research study for UK cyber resilience, aligning with the National Cyber Strategy. Now, it is primarily used to inform government policy on cybersecurity. The study explores the policies, the processes, and approach to cybersecurity for businesses, charities, and educational institutions. Now, it also considers the different types of cyber attacks and cyber crimes that these organisations face. And a bit of information from the most recent survey, which found that across all UK businesses, there were approximately 2.39 million instances of cybercrime and around 49,000 instances of fraud as a result of cybercrime over 12 months. Across charities, there were around 785,000 cybercrimes over the same period, and the average annual cost for businesses is estimated at approximately £15,500 per victim. So some really eye-watering figures there, but gives a sense of why it's so important to look at this topic. Now, as the government embraces the future of AI and IoT, whilst accelerating its digital transformation, the issue of cybersecurity remains prevalent and on the minds of senior officials across both central and local government. This virtual event brings together key figures and thought leaders in cybersecurity to discuss ideas and thoughts as to how to overcome the challenge of public sector cybersecurity. So enough from me. We're going to begin today with our very first keynote speech, and that is from John Keegan, who is Deputy Director and Head of Digital Security at the Department for Work and Pensions. So please welcome John to the virtual stage. Over to you. We appear to be having a slight technical issue there, so I'm sure the team are working to get that keynote speech to you from John Keegan. So if you could just bear with us for a few moments.
And welcome to the Public Sector Cybersecurity event. I'm John Keegan from the Department of Work and Pensions, and I'm pleased to be opening today as the keynote speaker. So, talk a little bit today about how DWP are looking at cybersecurity controls and how we're protecting services for the citizen today. And really go into a little bit of detail about how doing the basics well is a really important part of how we protect and would really recommend that you protect. And really, once you do the basics well, a lot of the more complex side of things is a real natural flow from that. So DWP, one of the biggest government agencies within the UK. We serve a lot of citizens, so the most vulnerable people in society, around about 20 million customers. We've got a fairly complex IT estate. We've got well over 400 different systems today. We've got around about 1 billion lines of code, and we've got about 4,000 people in our our IT organization. So managing a complex estate like that requires quite a lot of expertise around the security controls. We serve a lot of applications over the internet. We pay benefits through that mechanism, and we pay a lot of money in benefits, around about £244 billion. So we work like a lot of the banks in the UK, as in with all the transactions that take place across that. Plus, we've also got quite a large workforce. We've got over 800 buildings across the UK, job centres up and down the high streets across the UK, with work coaches and serving citizens to get people back into working life again. With a state like that, it's quite a challenge. So I've done a few roles for DWP over the last sort of 8 years. I've run their infrastructure for a couple of years. I established a site reliability engineering capability, but for the last couple of years, I've been leading their cybersecurity capability. And really, I mentioned that because what we've done with cybersecurity is taking it more from an IT control and engineering type approach to be able to really embed those controls. Whereas previously, security seemed to be more of a process and assurance. So this is really a doing capability. One of the things that we've used is the NIST cybersecurity framework. Not really to tell us what to do, but as a way to get a common language to explain to our engineering people, our product people, our digital people, but also the people that are serving the citizens. A common language is really important so that people understand what we're doing across that. And the NIST framework's really quite good in that way, in that it's really clear. It's about how you identify the assets, the services that you've got, so you can actually understand that environment. It's about how you protect those services, what controls you've got that will prevent bad things from happening. And then if something does happen, how you detect that, how you respond to it, and how you recover. Actually, there's a new version of this just been launched, which has also got a further step around governance. But that common framework and that ability to really do the basics right, and kind of called out across that is the cyber hygiene. Keeping on top of your vulnerabilities is really important, but if you can remove the things that are vulnerable that you don't need, then even better. You don't need to patch or mitigate those things. So servers that have got things like Adobe Reader or Adobe Flash on, there's no need for that to be in place today. So a lot of what we've done has been about that cyber hygiene and getting that control in place. The other thing that we've done, building on the NIST framework, is we've adopted the CAS critical controls. There's 18 of those, and they break down to 153 sub-controls. But what this does, it gives you, again, a framework, a structure, so that you can make sure you've developed the controls, but you can apply that in a way that's measured and actually, ubiquitous across the organisation. So that's also been really important that we've got that. And it also gives us what you can see on the left-hand side there, and this is straight from the CAS website, is it gives us the ability to do defense in depth controls as well. So really important that we protect things like from a malware point of view and ransomware at the outer edge, at our email gateways, at our internet gateways, but also really important that we follow that with things like security education and awareness, so that people know not to click on those phishing emails when they get through. But if that does happen, that we can block the response maybe at the firewall. We can contain that using endpoint protection. And we can do things like explicit allow for certain applications. So again, back to the message really I started with today, it's about doing the basics well. And then once you get the basics right, you can then start to do the more advanced, the more complex side of things, where you correlated events and really understanding what that complex threat vector would look like. So NIST is great from an identified point of view. It's about understanding that entire estate, every asset that you've got across that estate, the state of that asset, through that life cycle, whether it's a new thing being developed, whether it's something going end of life and retiring, or whether it's somewhere in between across those things. It's about also making sure that any configuration of those assets you understand all the way through that life cycle as well. So that's really important, really powerful, being able to not only be able to protect against when bad things happen, but understand what normal behavior would be, so you can look for any anomalies across that. The second bit building on that, and why protect is really important, is that it's great to have a detect capability, but if you're detecting something bad's happened from a cyber point of view, you typically a step late. The thing's already happened. So we spend a lot of effort, and it's a bit like the IT shift left. If you shift left through to automation, doing the same thing from a protect point of view as well. So if we can stop something from happening at source, we can stop something coming into the organization, we can block something at the external perimeter, then that's a lot more effective than being able to detect and, ultimately respond and recover across those things. So that defense in depth approach is really powerful, really important for any organization, certainly something that we've been building into our processes for the last few years. And then kind of finally, you've got the, if something does happen, can you detect, respond, and recover from that in a timely way? Ideally do that in such a way so it doesn't affect the service to the citizen, it doesn't affect the service to any of our end users. And the way that we've done a lot of this together, and it's not about one particular technology or one particular tool set or one particular way of working. It's about really thinking about our controls and our protection from an end-to-end architecture point of view. So we've developed an architecture using various, commercial off-the-shelf platforms, software as a service. We use ServiceNow, we use Office 365, we use a lot of the main sort of security vendors that you'd expect. Amazon Web Services is a key part of what we do for our hosting point of view. But our ability that we understand those assets, we can identify, we know what they are, we know the configuration. At the top left, we've got our protection controls. So we can protect things at the gateways, we can protect things by having endpoint protection on our devices, but also we can use those same controls to detect and use that to continuously improve to turn those detection controls into protect. We correlate a lot of the events, the data, so a security information event management point of view, how that kind of works. But then we pull that into a whole load of workflows that we can then generate some automation and an orchestration. So playbooks, play guides, those sort of activities. But also from a compliance point of view and vulnerability side of things, making sure that we understand that estate, we understand where we are exposed, and we can play in the threat intelligence side of things. So not one size fits all, but a range of different controls and techniques, fundamentally all based on NIST cybersecurity framework as our point of reference, using the CAS version 8 critical controls to kind of frame as to how those controls work and what those look like. Not forgetting to do the basics well, so clean up the estate, get your cyber hygiene right, keep on top of your patching, get on top of your configuration compliance, and then have that ability that you can respond and recover if you get those. So hopefully my little talk this morning has spawned a little bit of thought. I'm quite happy to take questions after the event, but I shall leave it there and hope you enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. John Keegan, the Deputy Director and Head of Digital Security at the Department for Work and Pensions. And as John mentioned, he's really happy to take any questions that you might have from that keynote. So if you do have questions, then please do email them to events@cognitivepublishing.com and the team will pass them on to John. Okay, so we're going to move on now to our very first leaders debate of the day, which will be discussing secure by design digital transformation. Now, in a recent survey, 76% of respondents reported seeing a marked rise in cybersecurity threats compared to the same time last year. And with the public sector taking steps to digitally transform to ensure continuity of citizen services, cybersecurity is arguably the most important step in any organisation's digital transformation journey. Now, with a lack of integration between legacy IT and also modern security solutions, organisations are left open to cyber attacks and threats, costing millions in recovery. Now, in this panel discussion, we'll discover how the public sector can ensure it is secure by design, using cybersecurity as a foundation in the digital transformation journey. We'll also gain invaluable insight into lessons learned from sector leaders who've suffered a cyber attack during the pandemic, and then hear the latest government policy and updates on how to keep your organisation secure no matter where you are in your transformation journey. So let me introduce now our panellists. We have joining with us today on the virtual stage, Luke Crosby, who is the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for the Ministry of Justice, Futini Tsekmezulu, Head of Securing Digital Transformation at Central Digital and Data Office, Lee Rickles, who is the Chief Information Officer, Programme Director and Deputy SIRO at Humber Teaching NHS Foundation Trust, and Soren Pamphil, who's Head of Cloud and Hosting Digital Futures at the Crown Commercial Service. Welcome to you all. And just for those of you who are joining us for the first time, and maybe even if you've been here before, a reminder that we really want to be able to put your questions to our panellists. And so as we're discussing various issues, if something comes to mind that you want to ask our speakers, then please do use the Q&A function, which is on the right of your screens. I'll keep an eye on those questions coming in and try and put as many of them as I can to our panellists. But let's get started and learn a bit more about our panellists to begin with. I thought it might be good just in your own words to get a sense of the role that you have at the moment and sort of where you are in terms of your priorities around cybersecurity. So perhaps we'll start with you first, Lee.
Yeah, thanks. So where are we? Where am I in my organisation and organisation? So I have two very different areas, to be honest. The first one is really the trust. And over a number of years, I've been in post for quite a few years, and that length of time does make a difference in being able to implement and support a long-term plan. So we really are in the keeping our technology up to date, getting the basics right. So rolling replacement program, making sure we've got the appropriate patching and security software around there, making sure we're doing, very importantly, training, staff training. That soft risk is absolutely key. And then how we dovetail them capabilities into how the organisation wants to flex and move on. We're very mobile. We're lots of remote locations. We're not one big hospital. We're community mental health and primary care. So it does create a different set of dynamics. So it's really making sure we're managing that risk and also enabling the transformation. In the other hat, I run quite a modern software stack for shared care records. It covers 8 million of the population in England. That's Google Cloud hosted, modern tech, Cyber Essential Plus assured, all that other stuff, and that's really and I think that's a really good example of where by being able to start on the greenfield site and make sure you are really safe, secure, using modern approaches is really supporting that agility into transformation and making systems far more accessible. So they're the sort of two bits. So one is really how do we sweat the assets and really get that modern tech and making it of some value and improving experience. And the other one is just making sure we minimize risk, because it is all about risk from a trust point of view.
Thank you. That's fab. Thank you, Lee. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, hi. So I'm the Deputy CISO at the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice is a massive organisation, 80,000 users, so member of staff working in really complex environments like prison and probation office and across the courts. We have about 800 digital services, and we have a lot of legacy services. And it was really interesting to hear you mention legacy as one of the key challenges, because it's certainly a challenge for us. We have just launched. We're just about to launch our new cybersecurity strategy for the MOJ, and it's sort of focused on three things really. The first is looking at the people, so making sure we've got a strong security profession and that we are getting capability right, and that we've got a really strong security culture across the organisation. Then we look at our kind of controls. So it was interesting to look at this framework earlier in the keynote speech, but getting those basics right that has already been mentioned a lot, making sure our controls in place, making sure we're working really closely with digital and data teams, with projects and programs to make sure all of the controls in place. And then finally, that we are proving that we are doing the right things, so that we're using data, so that we're measuring the right things, so that we are making sure that when someone asks us the very difficult question, how secure is the MOJ, we have got data to back that up and not just anecdotes and storytelling. And I think the big challenge for us, and what I'd like to discuss today, is how do you do these really great things that have been mentioned already at a massive scale across a really fragmented estate? And that's the challenge that we're grappling with.
Brilliant, thank you. Really great way of setting the stall there. Fortini, what about you? Can you tell us a bit about your role currently and your focus?
Of course. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you our work on the cross-government secure by design approach. I've been a cybersecurity professional for over 20 years and worked for a number of large government transformation programs, managing suppliers and delivering risk management, security requirements and assurance. I joined the Cabinet Office 3.5 years ago. In my current role as head of securing digital transformation, I head up a team focusing and working collaboratively with other government organizations like Luke's organization, DWP, across really the central government, to reduce common cybersecurity risk and make things secure. I am leading the cross-government secure by design work, working very closely with a cross-government working group on that. And this work is a key priority in both government and digital strategies.
Brilliant, thank you. And last but not least, a few words from you, Soren, on your current role.
Sure. So I am placed at the Crown Commercial Services, and I'm not a cybersecurity specialist, but I'm a more commercial person, and my role is to ensure that we protect all the public sector organizations from cybersecurity threats. However, this protection costs money, and we have to reflect adequately in our agreements and frameworks and contracts how best to protect the public sector. So if we have a contract with the provider, we need to make sure that those contracts are effective, for example, by having liquidated damages and the ability to withdraw funds or retain funds from the next payment by credit systems to make sure that the provider adequately provides the service to us.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to all of you for those words of introduction. Perhaps we'll start with you first, Luke, with that sense of, the very early stages. How do you ensure that security is involved with new ideas and initiatives, at that first stage?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that I wanted to start with was that people need to know about your security team. So I think it's often the case that security teams can kind of operate in the corner of the organization, that it all feels very secret squirrel, that it all is all kind of we are dealing with really sensitive information, so we have to keep ourselves apart. But actually, I think one of the most important things that we've been doing in our team is getting out there into the organization, making sure that people know about us, and we do it through security culture programs, we do it through being really present on boards, and so when people think about security, they think about us, they want to talk to us, and that's underpinned by really strong philosophy. So we have a philosophy in our team that we want to enable projects to happen, that we're okay with taking risks if they're taken sensibly, and if they're thought through, and that we want to help the organization to innovate. And I think having that kind of mindset as a team really helps people to want to work with you. And then the other thing is just getting to the places where change in the organization happens and making sure there's a really strong security presence on that. So we have had people in our team sitting on digital triage boards where decision about digital spend is made, and having a really strong security presence in that. We have had people getting really close to our demand teams in technology. We are getting ourselves on to project and program boards and being key holders in business cases, and making sure, therefore, that whenever something is initiated, we know that it's happening and we're able to give kind of good, sensible, pragmatic advice at the start of the project. I think that's absolutely key to making sure that Secure by Design starts at the very start of the project, which is absolutely where it needs to start.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And actually, I've just noticed we've already had some questions coming through, so I might just open this up to the panel, and if anyone feels that they can answer it, then just chip in. But we've had this question from Abiola, who asks, what controls do you apply to applications that are purchased from third parties towards reducing risk, for you may not have access to the secure code for security review? Is there anyone that feels they can maybe have a go at that one?
I'll come in on it.
Yeah, Lee, go for it. Brilliant.
Yeah. So it is a really good question. I mean, the first question I would we would cover is why. If it's that essential, is it really that essential? It's really the question of the why, the 5 whys. Now, if we get to the end of the 5 whys and it's still absolutely the case, then we're really looking at how can we layer security around that particular application as an unknown. I mean, personally, I would really not be keen to cover anything that we cannot have a really clear understanding, one that doesn't show appropriate accreditation, it doesn't have all the things in there. So layers, so that's internal by separating VLANs out, having other additional security wrappers in there, making sure we have multi-factor authentication, even if that comes via our own tech rather than their tech. And the other one is actually testing the product set as well. And that could even be secret shopper testing. So, they don't know you've gone and got a load of cyber experts in to go and do a load of pen tests and trying to take the system down from that perspective. So it's all part of minimizing that particular aspect of risk with the tools you've got available. You've got to put that into the context of the risk. If it's one app that one person's using on one device that you can lock down, that's completely different to a corporate set of solutions that you've really got to put a wrapper in. So it's scale, context, risk, and doing appropriate checks and balances in there. That's the way I would we approach it in with our organization.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for that question. So quick off the mark. And, any other questions, I'll keep an eye out for them. Fortini, let me bring you into a kind of, I guess, a very straightforward question, but it's very much inspired by this, the subject. What does secure by design mean in the context of government? And what problems do you feel it will solve?
Excellent. Thank you for the question. So The UK government recognizes the importance of building secure systems from the outset to protect sensitive data and critical infrastructure. So this work aims to increase cyber resilience by introducing a common and consistent approach for building protective controls in digital services from the very beginning and as these are being delivered. So the purpose of the cross-government secure by design approach is to ensure that security is embedded within the digital delivery from the start, and effective and proportionate cybersecurity measures are being built into the government systems. And the approach encourages organizations to make security everyone's responsibility, as Luke was inferring to earlier. Responsibility across the project team and the organization, and continuously manage security risks at the right level throughout the digital delivery lifecycle. In terms of problems and goals, the work aims to embed security thinking and practices in projects from the start, from when the team drafts the business case. So it's the end-to-end delivery life cycle. Change behaviors like stress to the project teams that security risk is a delivery risk and that security risk management is everyone's responsibility. It's about encouraging project teams to adopt a continuous security assurance approach and not carrying out assurance work at the very end when there is limited opportunity to introduce new security improvements because there is no budget in many cases or resources. Also support organizations achieve the outcomes and indicators of good practice stated in the respective GovAssure profile. And GovAssure is really the latest, the new way of doing cybersecurity assurance within government, and it was introduced in April. And finally, really to improve trust between government organizations by driving a consistency with the adoption of these common principles and activities and tools and all the things that are part of this approach.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. Soren, let me bring you in. I mean, what would you, I know you said earlier you're not a cyber security expert, but for you, what are the priorities? You know, what do you want to sort of focus on and the kind of message to those of us in the room today?
Sure. So the way I see threats in cybersecurity to the public sector, one of the biggest threats is resistance to change in that IT. And the organizations usually focus their change effort on the matters that either bring glory to the CTO and the CIO, or matters that are broken already. Yet the vast majority is left for another day. And IT that is left to languish for years without change becomes ever more open to cyber attacks. So I'll give you two examples of what we are doing about it. So for example, the first one is Crown hosting, which is one of my three main areas, is an example of a concept designated to accommodate the IT where the change is put for another day. So what we do, we help break down IT change into more digestible steps to save money with each step. And also we provide improved security, lower the costs, and increase the customer's knowledge of how that IT works. And this enables a better application of cybersecurity. And the second example, one of my other activities is to enter into memorandums of understanding with hyperscalers to provide free training and close the digital skills gap in the public sector. And this not only saves money to our public sector bodies, but also improves the cybersecurity prevention.
Brilliant. Thank you, Soren. That's excellent. And I've actually just noticed we've had another question come through. So I'll just put it to the panel again. So this one is from Abiola as well, and they asked, do you agree that globally we have a skill shortage of highly skilled security personnel, with the UK government trying to attract internationally? How does this impact security by design, more so for government agencies with sensitive data? So this is around kind of personnel. Do we have the capacity to deliver secure by design when it comes to people that really know what to do? I saw you nodding there, Luke.
Yeah, so I absolutely recognise that there's a kind of skill shortage, and I think it's often talked about in the organisation. But the thing that I like to focus on is the amount of untapped skill and capability we have. And I think in our organisation we have a small group of security professionals, but we also have lots of people within digital and technology roles, within commercial roles, who know an awful lot about security, and often, you know, are real experts, even though they don't badge themselves as security professionals. And what we've been doing is trying to tap into some of that. So working with technical architects, working with security engineers, working with project managers, to make sure that they have skills and capabilities, that they understand cybersecurity. And so it's not just the central security team that is trying to push forward this effort, that it's being pushed forward by skilled and capable professionals across the organization. And I think that is, as a security community, is what we need to do. We need to tap in better to the real kind of skilled enthusiasts that know about these things working in local teams, so that we can again, you know, do the things that our government cybersecurity strategy say. If we want to defend as one, then we need everyone knowing their role in this, and it starts a lot in DDAP professions, in projects and programs, and across the rest of the business.
Great. And just wondering if Fortini, Leah and Soren, if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I completely agree with Luke. And as part of this cross-government secure by design work we are doing, we're exploring exactly that the digital and data professionals, what's their role in security. And I'm sure we all know about the data capability framework and the roles listed there. So we are liaising with this community to kind of discuss the secure by design activities we've got in our approach, and what's their responsibilities and accountabilities within for these. Really, this is to say that security is everyone's responsibility, as we were saying there. So the approach we're putting forward will help really with the skill shortage in terms of bringing other roles into security, plus offering practical guidance with examples, tools, templates for the non-security professionals to accelerate and improve the quality of security work within projects.
Yeah, Lee, I think you want to add something.
Yeah. So, but I think there's a level of reality we've got to accept in public sector. You know, we bring people in, we develop them, we get them qualified, and then suddenly they wander off to Leeds and get 4 times more salary than they do in the public sector. And I think that difference in parity of salaries, which exists public sector to private sector, does create a great difficulty, even a pervasive one, because we end up contracting with the same organisations that have taken your resource away from you to help on that very experienced, that very highly capable cyber resource, which are difficult to get hold of. So there is still some challenge there. We're going in the right direction. I think there's always still going to be that pay parity because of public sector to private sector. But I think there is that, you know, we've got to have that recognition in the NHS. There is a massive gap in digital skills and resources at all levels. We have the same in staffing, don't get me wrong, and it is everybody's business. I must be honest, my biggest concern is actually the staff doing something daft, and that's the wider staff, not the experts. But you know, that them salary differences and that competitiveness doesn't help. You really are trying to get them really capable people. One, we try and do it at scale, an ICS level. ICS is a group of NHS organisations that work together in about a population of about 1 million, 42 nationally, to one, reduce costs and get the salaries about right. But also trying to operate at that scale as well, which some degree mitigates it. So it's still going the right way, but it's still not perfect. That salary gap is always going to be a challenge, especially in these very specialist roles, whether we're talking app development, APIs, cyber, etc., etc. It's very, very similar.
Great, thank you. And just briefly, sorry, because we've got another question coming in.
So very quickly, to Fortini's point, we cannot stop our employees leaving for more money, but we put in place through these MOUs with hyperscalers free digital training, and we are currently aiming to upskill 20,000 DDAT professionals in this field. So at least if there is a churn, we keep people trained and updated with a reduced digital skills gap.
Brilliant. It's such a good question. Thank you so much for that. We've got another question coming in. I think this is for you, Soren. Narinda asks, how far does CCS carry out due diligence on suppliers in terms of compliance with basic cybersecurity accreditation before they're permitted to be on government networks?
We are, for example, in my area and my team, we're putting out a Cloud Compute 2 framework, which is currently under evaluation. And through our questions and criteria for evaluation and the incorporation of the new procurement policy note 623, which relaunched all the playbooks, we are incorporating all the latest cybersecurity prevention. We are indeed auditing the departments. And for example, I give the example of Crown hosting. How does that contribute to secure by design? We have to think about the physical premises for the location of IT, as well as the associated facilities management, because physical security of the buildings is a cornerstone of secure by design IT security. So if a malicious person has physical access to the IT, then even the best cybersecurity can be compromised without the organization or the owner knowing. That is why we use some of the most secure facilities in the UK, and these are audited not only by the government, but also by UK commercial organizations such as banks, financial institutions, cloud providers, and these organizations have a serious attitude to security. So we vet, but also we are in the public eye all the time, being audited ourselves.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. A really good question there too. Thank you. So we've actually come to the end of this first panel. It's just flown by, but just briefly, if you had a kind of parting words for our audience today on, what to focus on or priority. Fortini, what would it be?
For Secure by Design, what I would say is that this common Secure by Design framework aims to solve a common problem once for across government with a consistent approach, which is not meant to be rigid. So please come to us and talk about it more, so that others do not have to reinvent the wheel. So it's for all of you. It's important that you raise your questions with us and your concerns as we are still drafting the approach and working through the approaches. It means to be very collaboratively. The other thing I want to focus and raise here is that this work we're doing is not one size fit all, and it's not off-the-shelf solution. So the framework will provide good practice guidance for all of us, but you will be required to apply the specifics of your organization and limitations as well. But
thank you, Fortini. Thank you so much, because we are just running out of time. But Luke, final thought from you.
Yeah, secure by design can be done on everything, and I think we often focus on the new shiny things that we're building and building them securely, which we must do. But it's possible to do secure by design on legacy services. So when you're re-platforming, when you're putting in changes, thinking about how you do that securely is really important, and we mustn't forget and neglect our legacy estate. We need to be building secure by design in absolutely everything we do right across our organization.
Brilliant, thank you. Soren?
So we can also help customers in the public sector because their over time architecture with the incremental small changes lead to the customer losing track of their IT architecture, and we open the lid on that architecture and significantly improve their knowledge. And with greater knowledge, vulnerabilities are seen more, and mitigations can be implemented. And we also have close physical proximity to contemporary cloud systems, for example, in Crown hosting, that would be prohibitively expensive elsewhere. And we can enable change in other areas such as networks, IT kit, IT services to save money and improve security.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, if you're going to look at cyber, explain the risk as an organizational risk, don't explain it as a technology risk, put it in a real context to the audience you're explaining it to, and use that as a method to secure funding and resources for the short and long term. Absolutely key, put it in the context of the board and not of the cyber expert. Otherwise, one is far more likely to get that investment and support than the other.
Brilliant. Thank you so much to Luke, Fortini, Lee and Soren for a really great conversation and kicking off our first panel there. We're going to take a short break now, but there is time to digest what's been covered so far. So if you've got a chance, please do use our speed networking function as well to connect with others. I'll be back here at 10:40 for our next panel, which is on safeguarding data. See you then.